I call the Honourable Member Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I take a call on behalf of New Zealand First in the Companies and Limited Partnerships Amendment Bill, first reading. And I do also note that this is the first reading, and we similarly, as has been mentioned by some of the other opposition parties, do have concerns that this has taken 2 years to get to this House for its first reading, while many other bills have been pushed through under urgency by this government in order to follow their agenda on selling state assets and on pushing through social welfare reforms and other such things. However, something that does assist the New Zealand economy does tighten up the laws in terms of the way companies act onshore and offshore in relation to New Zealand commerce, that has a unanimity across this House, across all parties to support it. It is somewhat concerning that this government has sat on its hands for 2 years and done very little since the days of the Honourable Simon Power taking this to Cabinet back on the 28th of July 2010. It is disappointing too that this bill is seen suddenly as being able to be pushed up to the top of the list, while bills that, for instance, a month or so ago that were in the name of the Honourable John Banks, such as the Trade Safeguard Measures Bill and also the Regulatory Reform Repeals Bill, which were right at the top of the list and being considered, mysteriously disappeared off the list around about the same time as the inquiry commenced with the police in terms of the mayoral electoral returns for the Auckland mayoral race. So it is somewhat disappointing, Mr Speaker, that this government choose to operate in this manner, in that suddenly bills disappear off the list that were previously being considered because of other agenda reasons, to take them off the list and remove ministers from being in the firing line or in the debating chamber to respond to such things, while others are suddenly, obviously also because of media attention, such as this one in the last week in the NBR, suddenly rise to the top. However, it is at the top, and we're very pleased that it has now finally surfaced. And it's particularly pleasing that it has surfaced in the 19th year, the 19th birthday year of New Zealand First, and how appropriate that it does come to the fore, and that we will support it as a party, as we did going back all those years ago, back in 1994, with the Winebox inquiry into corruption and incompetence in those days. And if you can imagine, Mr Speaker, how pleased our party is, which has always been the party that has championed and pushed for investigation into corrupt and incompetent practices in commerce, then we're very pleased to see that this bill has now seen the light of day 2 years after it first went to Cabinet. It is disappointing to hear that we have been dropped off the EU whitelist, along with that other vanguard of good commercial practice, Russia, and that New Zealand now is linked with in the same boat as Russia, having been dropped off the EU list. And that is concerning that our country comes to that point with our very good friends in the European Union, and we would hope that this can be moved through very, very quickly, so that we can perhaps once again get back onto that auspicious list to ensure that New Zealand is not held in a lower regard as a result. Basically, Mr Speaker, there are some very good points in this bill, in that it does require a New Zealand resident administrative agent to be living in this country, and so it will take away the risk where up until now companies have been able to register from offshore in New Zealand, and basically there'd be no one residing here, and therefore activities, as we've heard in the House tonight, have been able to occur through window companies and shelf companies, and this is a very good move to close that down. It also means that at least one person must live who is legally responsible for the entity's administrative affairs, and therefore there is somebody answerable in this country to what is going on within the particular company or organisation. It also gives the power to warn the public about suspect entities by a note in the register. And again, this is a good move, that there's enhanced powers of the registrar to allow the public to be warned about things in the register, again is a good thing, and it alerts unsuspecting people in New Zealand and internationally as to perhaps some of the goings-on within organisations and companies. I also like the fact that in terms of the criminalisation of breaches of certain directors' duties, that it does now allow for an imprisonment of not exceeding 5 years or a fine of not exceeding $200,000. And again, that is a good, it's a good direction in terms of sending the right message out there that people, if they are going to break the laws of New Zealand in relation to the Companies and Limited Partnerships Bill, when it becomes an act, that they could face up to 5 years imprisonment as a result. Also, Mr. Speaker, it is interesting that this bill basically tidies up a lot of other administrative errors in terms of some of the commerce things and to do with the Partnerships Act and other similar acts to do with commerce and other commercial acts. And so therefore really it is very much also an administrative one to close some of the loopholes, to tidy up some of the red tape around some of the commercial activities, and to ensure that the Companies Office and the Registrar's Office is able to act accordingly according to these prescribed laws in this bill. So, Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First is happy to support it. It has got the support of all the parties across the House that we've heard from tonight, which is very pleasing. We would hope, therefore, and commend the Minister, and hope that this does not go back down to a lower level on the list, that it is maintained at pace and moved through the government's business and government bills that before this House. And we would hope that this can be expedited very quickly so that the reputation of New Zealand and our standing in the international commercial community can get back to where it was. So New Zealand First supports this bill and commends it to the House.
Mr. Speaker.